It was just after 10 p.m. when Princess Anne's phone began ringing with the familiar ringtone indicating it was her brother Prince William calling. Furrowing her brow, she picked up immediately. "William? Is everything all right?" she asked with a hint of concern. Calls this late were never a good sign in the royal family. "Anne, it's Kate." William's voice was tense and fraught. "She's been rushed to hospital. You need to get here right away." A pit immediately formed in Anne's stomach as worst-case scenarios raced through her mind. Good God, what happened? Is she all right? The children? The children are fine, they're with nannies back at Kensington Palace, William quickly reassured her. As for Kate, it's difficult to say right now. She collapsed without warning this evening and has been drifting in and out of consciousness. Anne was already grabbing her coat and purse, her years of military training kicking in. Which hospital? I'm on my way right now. St. Mary's in Paddington, William replied tersely. Hurry, Anne. I need you here. Those last 4 words from her stoic younger brother shook Anne to her core. If William was desperate enough to plead for her presence, the situation with his wife must be dire. Resolving to remain calm until she had more facts, she hung up and rushed out to her private car waiting outside St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, and put a foot down and barked at her driver. As the sleek black Bentley peeled away, her mind raced over the potential explanations. Kate was in her late 30s, fit as a fiddle from everything and could see, always the picture of health alongside her doting husband and 3 young children. Some unknown condition or ailment. Food poisoning gone horribly wrong? Or God forbid, something more nefarious? The possibilities seemed endless and ominous. 20 minutes later, and hurrying through the emergency entrance of the private wing at St. Mary's where the royals were attended to. She tersely showed her credentials and was ushered through the discreet side entrance, avoiding any waiting press or bystanders. William was pacing anxiously in the secluded wing's posh waiting lounge area when Anne burst through the door. His face was fraught with worry and a weariness that made him seem a decade older. "Annie," he rasped out, embracing his aunt tightly. Though they had an age gap of nearly 30 years, William and Anne had always been close, like-minded souls who shared a beef for military service and the unwavering sense of duty instilled in them from birth. Studying his ashen face, Anne felt a knot of dread tighten in her stomach. "What's the latest, William? And none of that fabled stiff upper lip business. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with here." William sank into one of the plush waiting room sofas, scrubbing his hands across his face. "Honestly, I'm just as in the dark as you are right now. Kate and I were just having a relaxing evening at home with the children when she suddenly collapsed to the floor without warning." Had she complained of any symptoms earlier? Headache, dizziness, nausea? Anne pressed. He shook his head wearily. "Not a thing, at least not to me. Maybe she was downplaying something, trying to tough it out as usual, I don't know." They both fell silent, torn between giving voice to their worst fears or daring to think positively in the face of such uncertainty. "Your Royal Highnesses," a gentle voice called out. They looked up to see Kate's personal physician, Dr. Malika Talker, approaching with a solemn expression. Both Anne and William immediately rose, a million unspoken questions burning in their eyes and postures. Dr. Talker held up a placating hand and took a breath. "The Duchess is resting for now, sedated and stabilized, thank heavens," she began cautiously. "But I won't mince words. We're still working to determine exactly what caused her to suffer that loss of consciousness and periods of fading in and out of awareness." William looked stricken. "But she'll be all right? With time and careful monitoring, I'm optimistic the Duchess will recover fully," Dr. Talker said carefully. "However, the preliminary blood tests have raised some concerns that need further examination and testing right away." And felt as if she'd been plunged into an icy bath. "Concerns? What sort of concerns are you talking about, Doctor?" Dr. Talker wet her lips nervously before pressing on. "Well, as you know, members of the royal family are routinely screened for a variety of conditions to establish a baseline. And in the Duchess's case, her latest screening has detected irregularities not present in previous tests. "Oh God," William croaked out, slumping back onto the sofa and cradling his head in his hands. "You don't mean?" "We're not jumping to any conclusions yet," the doctor stated firmly. "But I do need to run a full battery of tests to rule out any potentially serious underlying causes. Starting immediately." And slowly lowered herself beside her nephew, feeling as if all the wind had been knocked out of her. She was no medical expert, but she knew enough to understand what Dr. Tucker was delicately implying: something was seriously wrong. Over the next few hours, a grim silence fell over the private wing's lounge as William and Anne could only wait helplessly. Sleep was impossible as both wrestled with their private thoughts and fears about what horrific revelations might await them. Dawn was just breaking over London when finally, Dr. Tucker reappeared looking grave but resolute. She took a deep breath before beginning. "I'll start with the most pressing news. The tests have confirmed the presence of abnormal antibodies and blood markers that indicate an autoimmune condition known as systemic lupus erythematosus." William and Anne's eyes went wide. SLE, or lupus, was a chronic autoimmune disease that attacks healthy tissues and can cause widespread inflammation, organ damage and other catastrophic effects if not managed properly. It was a life-altering diagnosis dreaded by anyone, but potentially devastating for someone under the relentless public scrutiny of the royal family. Dr. Tucker continued solemnly. "I know this is frightening news, but please know that while SLE is incurable, advancements in lupus treatments have improved patient management and quality of life exponentially in recent decades. We've caught this extremely early thanks to the Duchess's diligent screening, so we can immediately begin treating her with immunosuppressive therapy and other measures to control her symptoms." William seemed to deflate, as if the wind had been let out of his sails. Anne, however, was made of sterner stuff, maintaining her rigid military posture and stoic expression. Only the tightening of her jaw muscles gave away her inner strife. "What are we talking about precisely in terms of treatment and prognosis?" she asked in a rigidly controlled tone. Dr. Tucker cleared her throat uncomfortably. "Well, SLE treatment typically involves prescription medications like corticosteroids to reduce inflammation, immunosuppressants to control overactive antibodies, and antimalarials to alleviate symptoms like fatigue and joint pain. The medications can have harsh side effects, but good disease management with vigilant care usually allows patients to live long, active lives." Anne's nostrils flared slightly at the clinical detachment of the doctor's phrasing. She instinctively reached out and squeezed William's hand. "And in Kate's particular case? What is the outlook?" The doctor fidgeted, clearly bracing herself. "As I said, we're fortunate to have caught this so early before any major organ involvement. I believe we can get the Duchess's SLE under control relatively quickly with aggressive treatment. However," she paused heavily, "SLE can complicate future pregnancies and managing medications during gestation would be extremely high risk." The implication hung like a guillotine in the air. William felt his heart plummet into his stomach, his dream of expanding his family with Kate suddenly shattered. Anne's grip tightened almost crushingly around his hand as a muscle ticked in her jaw. Dr. Tucker seemed to wilt slightly under the weight of her own prognosis. "I realize this is an incredibly heavy burden, but my primary concern is the Duchess's immediate health and well-being. We'll deal with the long-term ramifications of this later. Right now, I want to get her treatment underway and make her as comfortable as possible." She paused, then added gently, "Would you